Hello and welcome to another episode of Ashley Haden's Political Breakdown, a show that is utterly pointless, but it's not even worth a listen to, really, unless you're into politics. But, you know, have some fun. My guests this week are...
Ariane Sherine, an author and comedy writer.
And...
Will Preston, comedian.
Fantastic. That's, I mean, you're being very loose with the term comedian there, aren't you, Will? Sorry, that was very mean to start off with.
It's just on brand for you, isn't it?
The first story I want to start with is private schools. This week, private schools have challenged plans to widen access to the most selective universities in England, warning that it could lead to discrimination against young people on the basis of the class they were born into. Now, first off, should there be rules to allow more working class and lower class people into universities that are more selective?
Well, I've had this conversation with a good mate of mine called Ed, because obviously we want more people to have access to better education, but without being too generalising, without being too class elitist, there are, and I speak from experience as well, there are members of the working class when you go through school who are just utterly disruptive in school, aren't they?
Yeah, but they're not going to get the grades to get into these schools.
No, they aren't. I thought you meant you want more working class people in these schools, so...
Yeah, but if you're going to get into Oxford or Cambridge, you still need the grades. They're not going to have someone who got like shit GCSEs and then go, oh, we're just going to put you into Oxford. That's not what anyone's plan is.
I thought you meant like primary, secondary school level.
No, this is universities.
Universities, my bad.
Yeah, this is what the plans are. Private schools are disliking. What's your thoughts on this?
So, recap. Private schools are saying that access should not be widened to people from working class backgrounds.
Well, it shouldn't be moved to try to get more working class people in. It should be just left how it is. If some people get in, then at the moment it's 6 times more likely if you've gone to a private school or you're from one of the wealthier parts of the UK, of England, to get into these better schools. You know, the Russell Group schools, Oxford and Cambridge. Now, what they're working towards, and the Office of Students are working towards plans that would hopefully alleviate this to mean that it is going to be easier for working class children from poorer backgrounds to have the opportunity to get into these schools.
Right.
So the same with like work to try to make sure that like the BBC and diversity and everything else, they're trying to get more diversity quotas into universities. Is this right, wrong, indifferent? Does anyone care?
Well, I mean, there's an argument for whether there should even be private schools, isn't there? I mean,
yes. So, I mean, that's a whole different thing. If you're going to have private schools, should private schools be allowed to be considered charities?
No.
No. Why not?
Because they get all these tax benefits and perks that it's the same with like various religions that get tax benefits and perks, and they shouldn't get that because they're not charities and they're not, you know, they're not necessarily working for the greater good. You think a lot of religious institutions are quite homophobic, quite racist in their own way, and suppress minorities and like the most vulnerable in society, women who want abortions and gay people, etc. I don't think that they should get tax cuts, and I don't think that private schools should get tax cuts either. I don't think they should get all the benefits of being a charity because they're not a charity.
No, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, one of the things that I like the most about this is when the private schools have come out, because this is from the headmasters and headmistresses conference, and their members' concerns is to say they don't think it would lead to discrimination against young people on the basis of the class they were born into. Now, do we not already have discrimination for these elite schools on the basis of the class they were born into?
Well, of course. I mean, we have the poorest people in society are the most disadvantaged. I've just written a book called How to Live to 100, and it states that the poorer you are, the lower your social class, the less likely you are to live a long life. The more likely you are to die early.
You're 100% correct. I would counter that by saying, should we allow people to live that long? We're currently at a point where we've got an aging population around a lot of the Western first world countries. And we're going to get to a point, especially like of China, the UK, Germany, aging populations. We're not going to be able to afford anything for them, the care that they require. So should we not just kill everyone at, say, 70?
That's like an understandable Logan's Run, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, if you kill everyone at 70 or 75, then it's going to help the economy, help production. Everyone's going to have a job because people aren't going to stay there forever. Let people retire at, say, 50, and then they've got 20 years to enjoy their retirement. Kill them.
No.
I mean, economically, it's a very sound idea. I mean, morally, it's got issues.
Morally reprehensible.
Well, also, bear in mind that most people do not lead lifestyles that will mean that they live past 80 at the moment.
I mean, what's the average?
Average
is 60 something, isn't it?
No. It's about. It's late 70s for men and early 80s for women. Women live longer because they're less stupid.
I mean, I'm
fair.
Right, yeah. I mean, you've got that, and also the fact that men, if they spent enough time with women, want to die.
Well, men actually
kind of come across on a prick there.
Are less likely to live a short life if they're married, and that's because women nag them into eating better.
Yes, and
going to the
living
doctor.
correctly.
I can agree with that.
Are you married?
I'm not being I'm about to be married, but I'm already being healthier ever since
great.
doing it. But no nagging, just subversive behaviour.
That's great.
I mean, what's been? I mean, if we go back to the private school and university, the interesting bit that we've seen is since 2015, you've had the release of the cap space. Because there used to be a cap space in university places. 2015, that was taken away. And so there's been a big expanse of university places in a majority of universities, except the absolute echelons, who are still keeping to where they have been for a while. There's been a very small increase, but nothing substantial. So is going to these universities as important as it would seem in society? Because now we've got, I mean, let's have a look at everyone in power. The people who get the most opportunities, they tend to go to the Russell Group universities, the Oxford, Cambridges.
Yeah, a lot of those places, it's like they're breeding leaders, aren't they? I mean, Eton especially.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a Russell Group. I should have done my homework before coming here. I think leading on to that, not enough people are doing apprenticeships and trades. Not enough people are being influenced or encouraged to do it. I think from what I've seen, a lot of people are told, "Oh yeah, get a degree, then you'll be fine," and it's like, what about things that don't require a degree? I mean, I have a degree, and my brother's a carpenter, and he's getting along just fine and learning a trade, and that's valuable and getting work. And
what do you do your degree in?
Media studies and entertainment technology.
Yeah, I mean, let's not take you as an example then. I mean, good God in heaven. What a waste of money and time you are to society. That is just utterly pointless. Media studies and entertainment.
Hey, I'm one of the
I
good
can't believe
ones.
you're allowed to do that at university.
Oh yeah, you're allowed to do a lot of things at university. But
What university did you go to?
University of Portsmouth.
Oh, I mean, it just gets better, doesn't it? Good God. What I mean, do they go on University Challenge often?
I really don't know. It used to be a polytechnic in the 90s.
Okay.
So
You shock me.
Yeah.
I assume before that it was some form of swimming hall.
I think it was just a crater from where it was bombed or
You
something.
wept. Anyway. Let's move on to... We have to talk about Brexit. I really don't want to. I fundamentally despise Brexit. I don't think a lot of people still comprehend what it's about. But we have officially, we haven't officially left, but we have officially gone to a point of no return.
Yeah, we signed the deal, haven't we?
Yes. And so yesterday was the 31st of January. That was the day where just the most moronic of individuals went out to London to not give Burko a peerage or something. I'm not sure what they were doing. What are your thoughts? Because Jacob Rees-Mogg has been deleting tweets.
Yeah.
About his about saying things like no deal is better than a bad deal.
Oh wow!
And all of this
That's
he's been deleting.
right.
Yeah.
That surprised me. Well,
So my question is: are we already seeing people attempt to rewrite history?
Well, yeah. I mean, especially with online things, you're always going to have that. People can edit those like shit.
Well, we've seen more and more articles coming out about how the Remainers have to take some of the blame for this. And you've got people who've said for the past 3 years have attempted to rewrite history, saying, "Oh no, we said this all along, and this is what people voted for, and everything."
It's never going to be the Brexiteers' fault. Never ever. Like they are not going to ever admit to any culpability, even when like the shit really hits the fan. It's going to be the EU's fault for being intransigent and etc. Then it's going to be Remainers' fault for blocking something, or they're going to come up with all the excuses.
What did you feel about? Did you see the video of the Brexit Party MEPs?
Oh my God!
How did that make you feel?
Sick.
Yeah.
It's just on the not on the world stage. Sorry, the EU stage. We look like a bunch of children. A bunch. No offense to children, but a bunch of children just like going like, this is our moment to like pull our trousers down and show our asses. And the rest of the nations treated it with a sense of grace and hope we'll come back.
Yeah, I think the EU showed a touch of decorum.
They're so classy, they're so dignified, and it's so embarrassing what we've done. And I really hope they'll let us rejoin in 10 years.
Well, I think it'll take longer. Do you think we'll be able to rejoin in 10 years? And I mean, at this point, the question comes: would we even want to? Because it's all. Being in the EU is a good thing, not doubting that. But being in the EU with the deal that we had was exceptional. Now, going back in and being the same level as everyone else, would we actually want that? Because if we go back in, we will have to accept the euro. And I'm fundamentally against the euro. I think it's a terrible idea based on the fact that it's not picked with like this is the interest rate. Everyone has to deal in these rules. Everyone gets their own rules, which means that you're never going to fundamentally have a working currency if you've got from Greece doing what they want to Spain doing what they want to Germany doing what they want. You're not going to have a functioning currency, which the EU has proven to not be really. So would we even want to go back into the EU? Do you still think it's going to be worth it?
I'm not good with economics.
From what you just said about the euro, I mean, that's an argument not to go back into the EU because that, as you say, very likely happen. But what other options have we got? We got, what was it? What WT? Is it World
Trade Organization, WTO.
WTO rules,
which isn't running at the moment.
What is it down like Instagram?
The US refused to vote on a judge, and so the WTO literally isn't running at the moment. So anything that happens, you can't take it to the WTO because there's no arbiters there to deal with anything.
Will it be in place in a year's time?
Well, the EU is currently working on an idea to get something in place, but at the moment it's basically cowboy. You've got no one looking over it, and there's no real rules in place. You want to say there's a bit of dignity between countries, but there's never going to be. So the idea of us being on a WTO, on that, I mean, 11 months to do a deal. How do you have any thoughts on how this deal is going to look?
Well, they haven't managed to do anything until now, so I don't think that they're going to manage to do anything by December.
Well, Boris Johnson has said that there will not be an extension, and there can't be an extension now because he didn't put anything in place for there to be one. So we do have 11 months.
Yeah.
That's it.
That we're past the point now where we can push things back, aren't we? This is the last gauntlet, basically.
But he does have a majority.
Yeah, a shocking majority. Absolute shocking.
So there is a chance of him actually being able to do something. But what do you think he's going to do?
I think he's going to push things through very quickly.
But will that not put us into a worse deal because we're trying to rush everything through, and so we're going to have to give up a lot because the...
Yep. I absolutely think that's going to happen.
I'm just worried about the supply chains for pharmaceuticals because I'm on 3 pharmaceuticals, including antipsychotics and antidepressants. Can't live without them. My mate who's just voted for Brexit has just come back in the room. And so I swear I'm going to take all his money if I can't get my drugs and, buy them on the black market or something.
Considering one of them's an antipsychotic, you may actually take all of his money. I believe you. I 100% believe you on that. That's the main concern. I'm pleased I got you now and not after you've run out of them, although that would make for one hell of an episode. Right, so what news stories have you brought in?
Right, I bought a few. Shall I start off with a nice one?
Just do one. If it's worth us talking about, then we'll talk about it.
Kate Hopkins has been banned from Twitter.
Couldn't give a shit. Next one.
Really?
I don't care.
Has she?
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
Yeah, she should have been done ages ago. It doesn't matter.
Okay. The BBC cuts.
What about them?
How many jobs are they cutting? 450 or something?
Yes.
Yeah. How big's the cut again? The actual money amount?
Well, I'm not sure. One of the things they're cutting is Victoria Derbyshire.
Not literally. Not literally.
It's a show, and the presenter is Victoria Derbyshire, and that show has always been at the minimum useful. I'm not sure why they chose to get rid of that, which is there to make politics a bit more palatable for people who don't really care about politics, and have done some very useful articles or segments to let people know about stuff.
I've been on it.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I went on it to talk about cyber flashing.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
It's really well done.
Yeah.
I mean, they're incredibly professional, incredibly well organised, etc. Not saying anything about this. I'm sure this is.
Oh no, this isn't. This is nothing like that at all. This is basically a show about me trying not to lose my mind at how much I hate everything.
But you can't make jokes on Victoria Derbyshire, really.
Well, then it's shit. The BBC are right to get rid of her. Well, why would you get rid of that and not say Question Time, which is just bile? Would you get rid of Question Time? Do you think, just do it another way, do you think Question Time has any use?
Well, more people watch it, and I think that is the kind of deciding factor on whether they're going to cut things, isn't it? Because apparently
more people will watch people being kicked in the bollocks. I mean, that's not necessarily something you want to put on BBC, unless, of course, you're doing it to a politician. Don't do violence.
Victoria Derbyshire was... it was very popular online, but I think fewer people watched it when it was when
it was actually
telly,
going.
yeah.
I mean, it was a lunchtime show, wasn't it? So you're not going to get the same amount of people watching it as you would do a Thursday evening, when you've had a few drinks, you get home, you watch Question Time, and you try not to top yourself for Friday.
I'm very bad with television, but with Question Time, it is essentially are they talking about a subject? It's just one subject they're talking about?
No, it's a multitude of different subjects, and then questions from the audience of some of the thickest people alive.
And plants. Then some have plants in the audience. Don't they? This is another debate, obviously.
Yeah, it's are they plants? I mean, you tend to find that you do a bit of research, and this one person who's gone viral, he's asking a question that makes the Tories look good. I wonder who he is. He runs the Tories. How did that happen? How the hell did you miss this?
It's so bad. I mean, from what I've seen and read about that, it's just base level schoolboy error, isn't it?
Well, it's things like they record in Liverpool, and then every question is from the side of the Tories, and you're going, how did you find everyone in Liverpool that's a Tory and just put them in? Because that's literally all of them. I don't know how you managed it.
I thought you meant actual plants, and I thought, well, that would be useful because they give out oxygen, whereas these people just thieved it, basically.
That's a good point.
I mean, they are a waste of it, certainly.
Yeah, they should be converted into plants. That's what we're taking away from this.
Okay, let's go on to something else.
Yeah.
Northern Rail.
Oh, I was going to say that too.
Yes, so Northern Rail will be taken into public ownership after years of poor performance. Millions of customers have faced a 2.7% increase in fares this month as the firm's lines plunge into more chaos and cancellations.
That's interesting because the Tories are usually opposed to nationalisation.
Well, this is the interesting bit with it. Are you for or against the nationalisation of rail?
For.
Why?
Because they couldn't charge exorbitant fares. I mean...
I mean, the government has shown that it's able to put up prices with the best of them.
But then they'd be blamed. I mean, like, the fares, like, right now, like, apparently a return from Swindon to London, to Paddington, is £152 in peak time, and it's less than an hour's journey.
Yes, I mean, it comes to a point, especially like as comedians, you go up and down the country, you're not going to be able to afford to go up and down the country if you get a train, because you get paid like £200 for the evening, you've chucked away 50 quid there, I mean 150 quid for the travel, and then another £50 for drinking to stop going insane.
That's why I'm buying a car soon. Well, in a few years.
Soon, mate, soon.
Well, soon's very vague. But yeah, it's looking like that because train prices are so terrible and they cut off at a certain time. I mean, if you can't headline a gig somewhere and then but say, oh, I need to go on early because I need to go back to London because there's a trains. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you made the point of the Tories being against nationalisation. It was one of the things that was in the Labour manifesto this year about nationalising, and the Tory party said it was stupid. It was an awful idea. Where are you going to get the money from? Now they've done it, especially with this, and you've got a chance of South Western Rail going in the same direction as well. Because it's called, what do they call it? It's operator of last resort. This is their argument, because they have in place, the government have in place a system that if nothing else is working, they will take it over as last resort. And this is another example of, with our privatisation, we're fine with nationalisation if we're not the country owning it. I mean, most of our rail services are owned by the French, Hong Kong, Holland, Germany. Because they've all got systems in place that mean they can spread around the entire world, owning places, so the government actually gets some money in. Would you look at nationalising anything else, or is it just rail?
I don't know. I think the nationalisation thing, if you're going to nationalise something, it's still got to be a good service, because like you said, they can just drop the funding into it and make it terrible.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you're going to nationalise something, you need people who are able to run it.
Yes.
And what will probably end up happening, as we've seen time and time and again, is that the government will end up bringing in people to run it with the same people who ran it previously for the privatisation and screwed it all over. So this, I mean, it's incredibly easy to say that we should nationalise everything, but the absolute, the fundamentals of whether or not you should do has to be questioned. I mean, where are we going to get the money from to actually run it all? What we're going to do if we get profits?
But there's always money, isn't there? I mean, you know.
Yes, but there's always money. But if we can, I mean, we're getting to a point now where this week Sajid Javid has sent a letter to MPs and head of departments saying we need to find 5% more cuts. And And because they want to put that money into what Boris Johnson's main look at me, look at what I'm doing. So schools, hospitals, and everything else. And so we're meant to have ended austerity, but we're still going for 5% more cuts, which sounds very austerity to me.
Yeah. Wasn't the whole the thing like, oh, austerity's ended already or something? Like I find it very hard to keep on track what the austerity status is.
Well, austerity is carrying on for the next couple of years at minimum because all of those cuts have already been put in.
Yeah.
That's the thing. The idea that austerity ended last year when Sajid Javid said is what's bollocks. That's the word I was looking for. So nationalising, rail good. Anything else good?
Let's think about power. What about power? That's not nationalised. That's not privatised, is it?
Yes,
it is privatised. No, of course, because
British Gas, Centron, if that's one, or that may well be a transformer. I don't know. National Grid.
Well, there's hundreds of energy companies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, energy companies,
but weirdly, there's only one water company. There's only Thames Water. That is it.
What, for the whole country or for?
No, for like your region. You've only got one water, so you can't
Well, this is it. I mean, it's one of the reasons why nationalising the rail is good, because you can't have any competition.
Yeah.
It's impossible to have competition because you've got one line.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't have two different trains racing against each other or to make a better service. So it is a monopoly on that particular line. Now, if you look for broadband, with BT owning the majority of lines now, I think Virgin actually have started owning some now.
Well, they've implemented their own fibre optics,
yes.
haven't they? That's what.
But like a few years ago, because I started working for BT when I was like 17, got sacked. Well, no, I left, pushed when I was like 18 or something. But at that point, BT had been forced to not evolve.
How old are you? When was that?
I'm 31.
Oh, okay.
So that would have been
2007.
Something along those lines, yes. And so they'd spent like 20 years not being able to move forward because the government had told them that they weren't allowed to, because they could quite easily, because they owned everything, that would be a full monopoly. And so you had companies come along like Bulldog, there was some telly something. Every day you saw a new phone company, and they're going to do this offer and that offer and everything. And if you read the small print, it will always be all lines owned by PT.
Yeah.
And so would you be able to, if you were going to nationalise broadband, that was Corbyn's idea. I mean, dumb idea.
I think at the centre of the ethos, there's something good there, because everybody needs access to broadband, but nationalising it is a step too far. I think, what would you say is the best solution for everyone to have broadband, like access to it?
I mean, the first thing you need is a solid regulator. I think with anything, with any privatisation, you require a regulator that is actually going to have some teeth.
Yep.
Because if you don't have that, then you allow people to get away with whatever they wish. Yep. And so you'll find, like it's what's happened in energy, they work together to say, right, okay, what prices are we going to put? And so they can put up the prices as long as everyone else puts up the prices. So they can say, well, we can all make more money if instead of £20 a month, we do £30 a month. You want to do £30 a month? You do £30 a month? We'll all say around £30 a month. And then they all put it up, and then they're going, oh, well, okay, well, there. What's the difference? There's no actual competition. Because if you work into a spot where you have no competition, then it is a monopoly. What is it? A duopoly? Is it called a duopoly?
I was about to say it's more like a conspiracy than a regulator.
No, I think it's a duopoly. Is it duopoly?
Well, when two people own the market.
What's more than du?
Poly.
Polyamorous. That's what they are.
Polyamorous.
Oligopoly. Oh yeah. Right. Chance of me saying that slim to none.
Oligopoly.
Yeah, it sounds like yeah. Anyway, what was your third news story? Was that? Did you bring any news stories?
I brought new. No, you didn't tell me to.
I mean, I can show you the tweets. Do not worry. I can do the proof that I did, but do not worry. It's absolutely fine. I've got tons of them.
You have 15 pages.
Yes. And there was something. You were talking about something. There was a news story about that this week, but I can't remember. Denmark's been having fun. Talk about Denmark. Denmark is currently executing a controversial national ghetto plan called One Denmark without parallel societies. So what they're looking for is to get rid of all ghettos by 2030.
I thought the plan was to put more ghettos in or set up
I was
ghettos.
a bit
Like,
worried.
what? Wow, how are they going to do that? They're just going to gentrify everything.
It's something that was put in previously by the previous government in March 2018 and is now passed, and so it's going to be a set of quite harsh laws. So it involves the physical demolishing and transformation of low-income, largely Muslim neighbourhoods. Residents of the area's working class, immigrant, refugee communities have said that the measures are aimed at containing as well as dispersing them. So what Denmark have done is they said, listen, we've got some poor areas, we're not happy with this, so why don't we destroy all your homes, get you all to fuck off elsewhere, and then claim that our country is delightful.
But are they giving them better homes?
Nope.
That's bad.
They're just getting them to move.
Ugh.
But why?
Why? Because I assume just around.
Well, because they're all going to move. They're probably all going to move to the same place, aren't they?
Well, I think they're forcing them not to move, which will destroy a community. That destroys a community.
Yes, that's what they're looking at doing, because they're trying to get rid of all the communities that are ghettos. So all low, working class, all of this, get them to spread around. Because at the end of every year, the Danish government publish a list of the country's ghettos. At the moment, there are 28. There are 28 areas where more than 50% of the residents are immigrants or descendants of non-Western countries. So that is, first off, a worry.
Yeah.
To say you're a ghetto because over 50% of you are not white, basically. That's what that's saying. I mean, it's saying like, residents are immigrants or descended from non-Western countries. That screams not white. What's the definition of a ghetto? I thought it was just a poor area. It's different. It's different. Countries say different things. In Denmark, it's this.
Yeah.
And so a ghetto is based on the following criteria: income, percentage of those employed, level of education, and proportion of people with criminal convictions. And because of the negative connotations of the ghettos in Denmark, they're looking to get rid of them.
Is this a way of forcing them to integrate into Danish society? Because if you destroy the community, they don't have that sense of community, and they have to sort of head towards more of a Danish community.
I worry about this idea of forced integration. Integration is an interesting aspect in a lot of countries, because like in this country we talk about integration. We love talking about integration. I'm fine with immigrants as long as they integrate. Fine as long as you integrate. But at the other side, they're the same people who will always say you'll never be this.
Yeah.
So you don't allow people to integrate because you say, you could speak Danish, you could play for Denmark and everything else, but because of the colour of your skin or your parents, you will never actually be Danish.
And also,
in our eyes.
It's very difficult to integrate in the sense that no matter how much I integrate with people, like most of my friends are white, I hang out with, white middle class people by and large, but I'm still mixed race.
Yes.
My parents are still from two different countries. They're both immigrants, and I'm never going to be like white people. So they're never going to know what it's like to be me. I'm never going to know what it's like to be them.
Wonderful, by the way.
Is it?
Really
is it great?
good.
Yeah. It seems it.
I wouldn't
you
pick
seem
different.
very happy. No, but it's you know, what are we talking about when we're talking about integration? Are we talking about making friends with white people? Are we talking about speaking the same language? Are we talking about suppressing our own culture and customs in favor of white culture and customs?
Yes.
What are we saying?
Well, I mean, this is the question. And so when you've got so it's like in Denmark, we've got residents of ghettos are subject to a different set of rules. So they've got penalties for crimes can be doubled. Certain violations, which normally like finable offences, can now be imprisonment. So like in Denmark, this is meant to be one of the nicest countries in the world.
Yeah.
We're all so happy and everything. Even in this country, they see these ghettos and they treat them like second-class citizens.
Doesn't sound
like
very
they
nice,
have. I mean, the fact that they can have a different set of rules because of where you live, I mean, suggests that there's a massively, at the minimum, nationalistic undertone to what they're doing.
It sounds very dodgy. I do not like it.
We've seen the rise of nationalism. Can you think of a way of stopping it?
Oh, I wish.
Usually let it burn itself out.
Give it a go. So you just think
Well, I want a solution to stop it. But when was the last? Let's say that like the Nazis and everything was the last big surge of nationalism, like the massive, biggest. And how did people stop that? It ended up in a war, and they lost. It burnt itself out, and I
mean, I would say a lot of things, but suggesting that a war is burning itself out.
Well, burning everything out, really.
Yeah, it didn't burn itself out. People stood and rose and fought it. They didn't. The Nazis just didn't go, I'm bored now.
But what I mean, I know it's a rough term, but what I mean is it got to a point where it was too. Sorry, not too big, but it got to a point where it attracted other people to fight against it. Obviously, it was a worry.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily think that we should get to a point now where all we've got left is a war.
I met this amazing guy yesterday at my nan's nursing home. He's 98. His name's Ray, and he fought in World War II. He was born in Poland, fought in World War II against the Nazis as a paratrooper. He was captured and taken as a prisoner of war in Germany. He managed to escape. He fled to France. He was going to be parachuted into France again to fight, but he was ill and missed the mission. Luckily he missed it because the pilot turned out to be a double agent, and all the paratroopers died. And
wow.
Yeah, and so he was saying that he voted to remain because he thinks that the more countries are friends, the less likely it will be that there's another war. And he said that I know what war is like, and I would never want there to be another war. So, that was awesome. I mean, he's got just the most amazing story. But, I think he's right. I think the more sort of friendly countries are with each other, and obviously we've just gone and shot ourselves in the foot, but the more alliances we make, and the more we can be on moderate ground, neutral sort of middle ground in our countries, the less likely it will be that there's going to be another Nazi resurgence.
Yeah, but I mean we've seen all over the EU and the world the rise of the populists, both on the left and the right. And populism as a whole, this is where the issue comes, in my opinion, with nationalism, is the simplicity of it.
Yep.
It's so easy to go, hey, all you need to do is love your country, mate. You love your country, I love my country. You love your country, exactly. So they don't love our country, so let's not have them. We all love our country. They go, okay, then that's fine, but what do you do about food banks? Love our country, mate. We just love our country. That's it. If you've got to go to a food bank, you go to a food bank because you love our country. I mean, it's the absolute base of stupidity, but it is the us versus them. And that is the base of where fascism and everything else came from, is the idea of let's be together, let's be safe here. And then anyone else who says anything against us they're bad.
On the plus side, Katie Hopkins just got banned from Twitter, and she was massively populist, and Trump used to quote her. Yeah. So that's one Nazi out the way.
You complain if you called her a Nazi, believe me.
The thing with the Katie Hopkins stuff is that there's no argument to be made on free speech simply because it's on Twitter. And Twitter, Facebook, all of these have nothing to do with free speech. Yeah. Nothing. They're companies. That's all they are. It's like going into a bar and started calling anyone that was a majority, started chucking racial slurs. If you get barred from that, that's not against your free speech. Yep. That's them not wanting you in their establishment. It's the same with Twitter and Facebook. I worry that we look at Facebook and Twitter as the bastions of free speech, and we shouldn't do.
We shouldn't do, but also free speech is not an absolute. So even when you're on the street, if you called somebody a racial slur, then you could...
Yes, we have laws against it, yes.
Exactly. So this idea of free speech being absolute is just inaccurate.
Yes.
But, doubly so for Facebook and Twitter. They're platforms, they're private companies, they have the total right to ban whoever they want.
Yeah, and they should do more. But, I mean, then you have to look at what's, like, on social media, what's more important at the moment. Is it their allowing of Nazis and hate on there, or is it the fact that they allow political lies on there? Because one will...
propagate the other, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they're both bad in different ways, aren't they? Oh, news story, haha. No, totally random non sequitur. But I don't think the coronavirus is as bad as all the papers are saying. And I'll tell you why. Because it's 2% of people are dying from it, right? There's 200 out of 10,000, right?
Yes.
So 2% is about the same rate as flu kills people. So if you think that most of the people who are dying are elderly people with underlying medical conditions.
Is that true, though?
Yeah.
I mean, China are covering a lot about it, apparently, but that's like a conspiracy.
I mean, China would do. I mean, it's not a conspiracy. Of course, China has done their very best to make themselves look for years like this lovely place to live. I mean, you see the people who, if you go into like the BBC documentary about the millions of Muslims in re-education camps, you see them trying to pay that off and going, oh no, they all just actually love China. They're really happy to be here. We're actually helping them out a lot. And you see the dead stares of these people who are being brainwashed into standing there and saying how much they love China. China they're always going to.
So you think the coronavirus outbreak is actually much worse, and they're just suppressing it?
I think that we constantly look to scare, and I think the coronavirus will be the same as something as like SARS or Ebola, this type of stuff that is going to kill a lot of people, is going to be an outbreak. I mean, the World Health Organization have come out and said this is a global outbreak, and that's the difference from the flu. The flu kills people, certainly, but you've got it doesn't spread around the world based on one person going to shake hands with someone else. So there is a global outbreak, and this comes from... I think it's batshit. I actually think, if I remember correctly, because there was another coronavirus or whatever it is, the end of 2019. And you'll see on Facebook, and this is another thing about the lies. You see on Facebook, say, you'll see they already had the vaccination by the time this came out. It was a different strand. And so you see the lies being pushed over on Facebook. And so this is a new strand of it that's killing people. It's spreading around. It ain't perfect, I'd rather have the cold,
Or the flu.
Yeah.
I'd
rather have the flu at the moment.
But every time there's one of these things, like swine flu, bird flu, etc., it turns out not to be a thing. So I think the media do whip it up. Because on the cover of the Evening Standard yesterday, it said killer virus. in UK.
Yeah, but,
And it's like, come on, you know.
From the Evening Standard.
Yeah, it was
I
like
expect a better
kill a
standard
virus.
from the Evening Standard.
Kill a virus in UK. I mean, yeah, there's 2 people with coronavirus in Newcastle now.
Yeah.
Neither of them have died. I mean,
They're being treated. Are they still being investigated as to what? I mean, they found out what it is now. They're just trying to
contain it and treat it. Yeah.
I think that the Evening Standard is. I would have more confidence reading the Beano than the Evening Standard. It's up there with the most useless of all the papers. I understand that people like to do a Sudoku or crossword on the train, but reading that to get your news is like looking at a magic 8-ball to get the future. You know, don't. That, along with the Metro and all of these pointless free papers that are owned by knobheads that you already know are knobheads. I think the Metro is owned by the same people that own the Mail.
I have a soft spot for the Metro because there was an ad in it saying, "Do you want to win $3,000? Can you do anagrams?" And I went on a show and did anagrams and won $3,000. I will forever.
Humble brag.
No, just a brag, not even a humble brag.
Was it Countdown?
No, I went on Countdown as well. I didn't do very well. I won 2 and I went out on the 3rd.
I mean, winning 2 is impressive. I've attempted to look at Countdown before and it hurts me head.
Oh, you should apply.
No, I'm thick as shit.
No, you're not.
Oh no, I am. Yeah, I mean, I just read all of this. Someone else writes this. I don't. Couldn't pay someone enough to fucking do this.
Anyway, that was my story, so I have fulfilled at least a third of my bargain.
Sorry about that. Fantastic. What we got? That's Brexit. We don't want to do Brexit again.
Did you see the Led by Donkeys thing that they projected onto the White Cliffs of Dover, saying, "This is our star. Take care of it for us." Oh, made me cry.
I worry that Remain are going to turn into the same level of awful, annoying wankers as Brexiteers.
No, I don't think that's possible.
I
think they've got the monopoly.
I mean, when it all goes wrong, the absolute smugness of Remainers is going to make a hole in the time space. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. I mean, just that you'll be able to hear that "I told you so" from China.
I think it's largely a class war, really.
Yeah,
I don't think you had people like the EU Supergirl.
Yeah, Magdalena Kay.
Who?
I would have had Brexit just to shut her up. The absolute audacity of these arseholes who are going along going, "Oh yeah, we're doing this to stay in the EU." No, you're not. You're doing this for fame. You're doing this for absolute. This is your 15 minutes.
You think?
Doing these terrible songs, understanding that love rhymes with above. Fuck off. Remain Remain were like the Corbyn supporters, the majority, because they were a bunch of arseholes who took moral superiority for no backing of intelligence.
I'm a Corbyn supporter.
I mean, Corbyn supporter and Remain. Good God,
he's my MP.
You truly are winning.
Oh, I love him.
I think. I mean, what an arsehole.
If you want a good laugh.
Yeah.
Can I say this to the camera? If you want a good laugh, Google "love song for Jeremy Corbyn, Ariane Sherine." My friend John over there played Jeremy Corbyn in a music video where I wangle my way into his house by pretending to be a refugee. I have hot sex with him. Eventually proposes to me. We get married.
I think I've seen this.
I have the core baby. So I give birth. I am actually in labour, and then there's a terrible accident, and he tragically dies.
I think I might have blocked it out.
That's quite a video.
It really is, and you get to see me in my pants. So no, you don't need to. You're married, but you can watch it.
I mean, this it's my problem with the left as a whole. If you want to back with facts, wonderful. If you just want to say, "Oh, it's better to do this," why? Well, it just is.
Yep.
No. I can't be bothered. There has been some very good Brexit commentators over the past 3 years. People like Ian Dunt, David.
He's a Remainer.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I voted Remain. I wanted Remain. I just hate Remainers. Like people like Ian Dunt. If you read what he's doing, going, yeah, okay, just in time. This is an important thing. Look at everything that he's been writing, fantastic. And then you got people like Femi, who knows his stuff, but good God, what an attention-seeking prick. The EU Supergirl, Dr. Mike, who wants to be the new fucking Che Guevara. You're just going, fuck off. Every single one of you is fuck off. You're the same as fucking Mark Francois, mate.
I'm worrying that Twitter is not good for your blood pressure.
Oh, I mean, very, very little is, I'll be honest with you. And the thing is, I don't follow any of them, but they still come up all the time. It's the same, like, I don't follow, I never followed Piers Morgan.
Oh, so
he
people
came up
retweet.
every fucking 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Stop retweeting knobheads. Where was we? Where were we? Let's speak English while we're
talking
here.
about Brexit, and then this
Yeah,
happened.
no, I'm moving past that one.
Yeah,
Yes, a report by the Independent Migration Advisory Committee, published on Tuesday, gave the first detailed look into how the UK's immigration system will look after Brexit. So it is about Brexit, but a different side of it.
Okay.
This is their suggestion was a mixture of point-based system. And so they didn't think a fully point-based system would work, and so what they were looking for is with a job and a points-based system for the coming of the UK. So have what we currently have at the moment, and also half of it have a point-based system.
Okay, which other countries have a point-based system apart from Australia?
Apparently,
You seem like you know, sorry.
apparently they've lowered the salary requirement from 30 to about 25.
25,600.
Yeah.
That's the suggestion. It hasn't actually been done. But you're still there. All of this saying, a minimum of 25,600. All you're doing is putting a value on human life. That's all you're doing. The point-based system is putting a value on human life. You're saying, you're a nurse. You're only earning 20,000. You do not get to come in here. A teacher who isn't earning that much. Someone who's caring for your old and should be dead already gran. Kill them all at 75. Kill everyone at 75.
No, my
then we don't need to worry about
lovely.
immigration at all.
My grand's great.
The thing is, we've always put a metric on value of people like that, haven't we? Is the problem that, or is the problem that we're measuring wrong? Because nurses are incredibly important and underpaid.
Well, how would you do a point-based system then?
That's a big question. That's incredibly what's needed at the time.
I mean, I really don't know why you're on here if not to solve all the fucking issues.
Well, nurses
Have you
and
not
teachers,
watched any of these before?
Nurses and teachers, very important.
Yes.
And also, nurses and teachers will always have a job. So I think that we should lower the threshold, like to maybe 20 for nurses and teachers, and for people who are really crucial for society.
Yep.
Because those people, I mean, what they're trying to avoid is people coming here not having jobs and being on benefits, because they feel that takes out of our society. So, but if they have nurses and teachers here, like unlimited nurses and teachers, they will always have employment. So it's not like they will ever really be on benefits.
As I say, we have an aging population. How are they always? I mean, nurses certainly, because you always need nurses, but teachers, we won't have enough children by the end of it. That's how.
Also, people aren't having children so much anymore.
Yes,
But I tell you who are having children, immigrants are having children.
Well, yes.
So we need them to repopulate our population.
Ian Duncan Smith, who is one of the worst pieces of shit you'll find.
Yep.
Everyone keeps on asking what happened to white dog shit. Him. They all got together and created a knobhead, and that's him.
Did you know he's a quarter Japanese?
No way.
Yeah.
Is he turning Japanese?
Yeah.
Is he turning Japanese? Doesn't really think so.
Oh, Ashley.
See, I can do jokes.
Oh,
I can do jokes. Gosh, not all just political rants. But Ian Duncan Smith came out with an argument that one of the problems that we face at the moment is that 80% of new children born in this country are born to immigrant children.
Where's that problem?
It's not. It's absolutely needed by the point that you said. We're at a point where the only people who are actually having children are immigrants coming over here and trying to create a life for themselves. That's what it fucking should. It's the whole idea of what the best immigration can do. Would you have free movement for the entire world?
Well, I think that would be nice if people were going to just move around uniformly, but they don't. So
it's a bit of a big question, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it's one of the arguments that people who are against immigration use, which is I'm for free movement for the UK and the EU. Well, if it's so good, why don't you just have free movement for everywhere?
Well, I think to be honest, actually, the UK can hold a lot more people than it has currently, but there's going to be a limit.
Well, surely there's a limit with the amount of agricultural produce that we can produce.
Yeah, we don't make enough for ourselves at the moment.
Yeah, this is the big worry. This is very weird. How we're populated. I'm not saying we should kick people out. I'm just alluding to it. No, I'm joking. This is
tattoos and a bald head, mate. I wouldn't start going with that either.
I mean, they're red flags, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's just odd. I mean, I like this idea that is that true? Is that across the board? Like, indigenous population of this country are having less kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Look, I've only had
but
one.
That's over.
It's over there.
That's over a lot of the Western world.
Yeah, that's good.
Because as your life gets better, you don't have to have as many kids. You'll have kids in later life. So around like mid-30s to 40s, you don't need to have 7 kids to hope that they all survive.
I thought you were going to say, as your life gets better, you don't want to ruin it with children.
No.
But that's good, because what will happen is you have people coming to this country from outside the country, having kids, setting up a life, and eventually we all just become hopefully less indigenous, less white, a bit more tolerable. And maybe how many generations down the line we won't be as, well, what would you call it?
Cunts. Right. Do you have anything to plug as we're heading to the end of this? You can look into the camera for this.
Yes. Hello. My book, How to Live to 100, is out on the 1st of October. My book, Talk Yourself Better, about therapy, is out now. And if you want a good laugh, type in Love Song for Jeremy Corbyn, Ariane Sherine.
They'll all be below the video, all of the links.
Thank
Yourself?
you.
Cool. Nothing to plug apart from my show, Will Preston Can't Face Reality, coming to Leicester Comedy Festival in a couple of weeks, and other fringes. Find more information at www.
We'll put it down at the bottom.
Oh, wow. Sorry.
Final bit of news. According to the US Centre for Disease Control and Prevention, transgender youth have a much greater risk of suicide. However, if they have access to puberty blockers, the chance of suicide and mental health problems in the immediate and down the road decline significantly. We've also got prostate cancer is now the most commonly diagnosed cancer in England. Well done, men. Taking that away from women as well. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has proposed giving the majority shares and control of the oil industry to big international corporations, showing that socialism is such a great idea. Trump's being a cunt. He's unveiled his Middle East peace plan, which is not going to work because it's all for the Israelis and, for some reason, massively against Palestinians. We should have spoken about that, really. It's very fascinating, but we didn't have time. Therese Coffey, as MP and the Department of Work and Pension Secretary, has said food banks are a perfect way to help the poor, as is killing them in their sleep, I assume. China's being shit, and I think that's it. The new chairman of the Parliament's Women and Equalities Committee is Caroline Noakes, and she once voted against marriage equality. So that's going to be fun for everyone. I want to thank my guests and goodbye.